Okay, now here's a little pet issue of mine, which I said, I wish I had the time to write this up into a monologue, but I'm gonna do my best. So there is a growing effort on the right to, quote, abolish property taxes. I wanna say at the top, I sympathize. Everybody hates property taxes. Here in the state of Virginia, actually where I live, they even tax your car. You know, every year you have to pay your annual car tax, and it's one of the most unpopular things that people ever have to deal with. But I wanna really dig into this and tell people why it is actually a massive giveaway to the old, and if anything, it needs to be reversed. So let's put this up there on the screen from Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says recently, quote, "Hi, we need to completely abolish property tax. It forces us to, quote, pay rent to the government on property that we own. But if we don't pay property tax, the property that we own gets taken away. That should never happen in a free country." She says, secondly, health insurance is a giant scam. I agree, but let's stick with the property tax thing, because this is actually becoming policy. Let's put the next one, please, on the screen. Ron DeSantis is now proposing no property taxes in the state of Florida. And actually, it's Florida, Ohio, and many other Republican states that want to eliminate property tax. Vivek Ramaswamy has apparently said something similar. The more I looked into this, again, emotionally, I actually do understand. Everybody hates property tax. It's one of the things that's included in your mortgage. Even if you finally pay off your house, you have to continue to do it. The more I actually started to look into it, not only in what it funds, but the way that seniors are the ones who are the most benefit, not only of the property tax themselves, which is paid for services, but get exemptions. I was like, wait, no, this is a massive giveaway to the old. And it's an inversion of how policy should be. So let me put this up on the screen and then we can talk. I did a lot of this research. This was ChatGPT, thankfully. And I was like, how much property tax exemption already exists for old people? So in Florida, you get this thing called the homestead deduction. That's for everybody. It's for your primary residence, which is off of your assessed value. But seniors who are 65 plus and lower income, by the way, that low income is a very different definition than what I would think of low income, you get an additional $50,000 exemption. In Texas, you get something called the regular school tax exemption. And then for seniors, you get an extra $10,000 off of school district taxes, plus school taxes are frozen at the age of 65. The theory, basically for property tax and the anti-property tax movement for a lot of old people is, hey, we're older, our kids are grown, so why should we have to pay for schools? I think this is preposterous because I'm forced to pay Social Security and Medicare, like everybody else, with FICA. I could get hit by a bus on the day I turned 64 and 364 days and get no Social Security. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't have to pay it for my entire life. Right. So their theory is that we have to pay for their retirement, which, by the way, is pegged to inflation, but they get property tax, school tax frozen, and now they want to eliminate it entirely, which are city services, which again, who's calling 911 for an ambulance all the time? It's old people, okay? And these people want to opt out of that and shift the tax burden to the consumption of sales tax, which would actually be a massive giveaway to them. Not even worse, let me just continue the rant, is it would mean that their primary residence, they have no incentive to sell, which actually locks them even more so into housing stock, giant McMansions, which for two people, which in my opinion, rightfully should go to people with younger houses. Now, I'm not saying they should be forced to sell, but to say that, well, maybe I am, but it's like, I'm not saying there's
time to move on, Grandma.
I'm not saying they should be forced to sell, wink, wink. But the idea that you should be, that the government should provide you massive amounts of services, free retirement, free healthcare under Medicare, but you don't have to pay for my kids' school taxes, get out of here. And now you actually want to shift the local burden to more so to the consumers rather than the elderly people who, again, get inflation-pegged free money from the government. And now under the big, beautiful bill, you get a tax-free income for 88%. I just think it's one of those where it's a total abdication by the boomer generation. They're like, oh, we're done with the schools, so we don't have to pay for them. Well, you know, what if I'm done with you? Why do I have to pay for your health care? You know, 1% of all federal spending is on boomer dialysis. I'm not joking. 1% of the entire federal budget is on dialysis for obese boomers with kidney disease. It's one of those where, and listen, I'm pro-Medicare. If anything, we should go after the healthcare companies that jack up that spending. I'm not saying we should take it away from you, but you can't abdicate your responsibility to the younger generation. And that's what all of us is. It's like we literally have a socialist system right now for boomers. The more I'm looking into this property tax thing, I did not realize it's a massive giveaway to the elderly. And it shifts the entire tax burden on people who are younger, can't afford the homes, being frozen out of the housing stock, and are making it so that they have to have sole responsibility for their lives and for the city services of them, on top of paying for the quasi-socialist system of retirement that we have for everybody 65 plus.
I mean, the school thing is just like, do you live in a society?
Thank you. I know. It's crazy.
I mean, it'd be the same thing if I was like, well, my neighborhood is safe, so I don't want to pay for the cops.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just like, okay, we live in a society, we all live here together. There are certain things that are valuable to us. For example, the education of the children, right? For example, like, we could do a lot better about everybody being able to have healthcare, et cetera. I think you have to ask, okay, there are a certain set of services that people expect and need the state to provide. So there's going to have to be revenue raised somewhere. So if it's not property taxes, what is it likely to be? And that's
sales
where
tax.
where you
which is what? Massively regressive.
Massively regressive. So even taking like the age part out of this, our society, increasingly, the structure of our society in terms of haves and have-nots, and there is a deep generational component to this that is for sure, is between those who own their homes and those who rent. And if you own a home, you're much more likely to, have a sort of stable life. You're much more likely to have some sort of wealth that you've accumulated. You're building value over all these years. You already get big tax breaks from the federal government in terms of mortgage interest deduction. It's a major dividing line in terms of society.
And the capital gains after you sell.
That's exactly right. So there you get significant breaks. There's significant built-in advantages to being a homeowner already in our system. So what you're talking about is another tax break for homeowners who are much more likely to be, affluent than people who are renters. So, if you were going to instead fund things with a actually progressive income tax code, okay, then we could talk. Then I'd be open to it. But that's not the direction that they're pushing in. They're pushing, okay, we're going to do sales tax. And why is sales tax deeply regressive? It's because the poorer you are, the more of your income you're spending on consumption, because your back's against the wall, you're paycheck to paycheck. So basically everything that comes in is going out in expenditures. So as a percent of your income, you're going to be taxed much, much more. So it's
and the thing is, it's not
idea.
just a red state. And by the way, you wouldn't believe the boomer rage I've gotten for talking about this. But the more I look into it, the amount of breaks these people get is unbelievable. I talked to a state legislator who got mad at me. He's from New Hampshire. He's like, what are you talking about, idiot? Nobody freezes property taxes for people in New Hampshire. Took a simple Google search to find out that 13 of the largest cities in the state of New Hampshire, 203 localities, all provide something called an elderly exemption for property tax. The theory behind it is that these people are on fixed income and that they don't use the schools, so therefore they deserve the break. Again, that is the same argument that the school voucher people make about their property taxes, or private schoolers who are like, oh, but I send my kid to private school. Why should I have to pay into the system? Or, oh, well, I don't use that much trash. Why should I have? It's like this, it's almost like a libertarian mindset, but it's only libertarian, and the only opt-out it exists is for the elderly. Now let's compare US socialism for 65 plus to 0 to 5. That's where my baby is right now. What is she getting from the federal government? Zero, nothing. I get a measly tax deduction. What else? Pre-K when they turn like 4 or something like that. In between, good luck. Hope you make decent money.
Yeah. If you're Zoran and you propose free childcare, people are going to say you're a communist.
While they again get free healthcare, they get completely free healthcare. Now, a sane society would say that if you have to choose between them, in my opinion, 0 to 5 is way more important, especially than 65 plus in a country where people live until 83 years old. So Now, I'm not saying throw everybody out on their street, but for all of those folks, if you guys are gonna get your free healthcare, don't be coming around saying, I don't have to pay any property tax because I've already paid it and I don't use the schools. Again, we all have to pay for your retirement. And if you really wanna get technical, on an accounting basis, the average senior who retires at age 65 in the year 2020 paid $600,000 into the system. You get $1.2 million in benefits over the course of your life. Double, literally, what you ever paid into the system. So the idea that, you've paid for everything you get, no, it's false. Now, I'm not saying we should bankrupt you or take a lot of the stuff away. I'm in favor of reducing the massive amount of costs in the healthcare system. But the current way that it's structured is everything is about tax breaks for the people who are already homeowners, which disproportionately are the elderly. Let's put E4 here up on the screen, because this is very important. If you look at the current data, home buyers over the age of 70 currently outnumber those under 35. And in particular, it's for larger houses and or starter homes. So the way that the tax system is now currently, the way that the current tax system is that boomers are getting free Social Security, literally free. 88% of you will not pay any tax on your Social Security because of the new standard deduction, which is only for people who are over the age of 66 or whatever, by the one big beautiful bill. You get free money from the government, tax-free money, basically from the government. You get free healthcare, capital gains, no tax on your residence, which massively has boomed. You can roll that into a new house, and a lot of them are choosing to live lives of relative luxury from how they grew up. Now, I don't bemoan or begrudge anybody for being able to do that. I do think there should be a reverse of the system to incentivize first-time home buyers over people who are already elderly. So if I want to see tax breaks, I want to see them for the people who are under 30, not for the people who are over 70. But then you can't be buying your McMansion, which in my opinion, again, should be probably going to somebody under the age of 35, and then not pay any property tax for it.
Yeah.
Because that means you're never going to sell it. The carrying cost is way too simple for you. It's like the deal of the century that we're just handing over to all these folks. And here's the thing, you and I know it's going to pass. In Florida, it's full of old people. Their entire state is subsidized by the federal government because we pay for their residents' income and we pay for their health care. So now, you know what they're going to do.
We also pay for like their homeowners.
Well, yeah, and we pay for their homeowners. Right, and we insure all of their property, which by rights, nobody should even live in because it's near the ocean and is constantly getting destroyed.
I mean, I think there's overlap between, so I think the proper way to look at, the taxation system, rather than a generational war, zero sum between what the elderly could get versus what young people could get is, the big problem is that the wealthy pay very, very little in taxes. There's not a progressive income tax system in the way that there should be, and I'm talking nationally right now, but certainly in states like Florida that don't even have an income tax. And so, what you end up with is because you had older generations who were able to acquire wealth at a time period, more during the New Deal era when housing was wildly more affordable, healthcare was wildly more affordable, education was wildly more affordable, college education in certain places was free at the time. So you have a wealth disparity between generations, but the big war is the class war versus the generational war. There's overlap there. But, to me, that's the frame to look at these things.
I don't disagree. And politically, but no politician will ever talk the way I'm talking. Why? Because old people are the only ones who vote. But the thing is that it is important still to say that the middle class elderly is way better off than the middle class young person. Yeah. It's just empirically true.
A lot of that is homeownership.
And it's homeownership. The tax breaks are unbelievable. Or like in California with Prop 13, the biggest load of bullshit I have ever seen, that these people who buy a house in 1976 explodes in value from 100,000 to 2.5 million, living in Santa Monica or whatever in Los Angeles, are paying massively low property tax rate compared to somebody who has to purchase the home, let's say in 2015. I'm sorry, it's not right. And they're like, oh, but it's not fair because I'm priced out because of the property tax. Listen, if you were, this is where my personal responsibility spiel. If you saved your money and you put it in the 401k like you should have, then you should have no problem being able to pay your property tax. But their argument is that, again, their free inflation adjusted income should be able to sustain a mansion in Santa Monica. preposterous. The property tax should be pegged to the accurate market value, and if you have to sell, so be it. You should have worked harder and should have saved more money. And it's just like infuriating that they continue to try and stop paying for school taxes, cap their own property taxes, and make it so that they can live in housing stock, which again, by any fair market should, and fair societally, should be occupied by people who are younger who literally cannot get into them.
I mean, it's basically, I think people should just think of it as a tax cut for the rich, effectively.
It is.
I mean, that's disproportionately who's going to benefit from it. And so if, my metric is just, is it a regressive or progressive tax? And if you are getting rid of property tax and shifting that burden over to an income tax, a consumption tax, I mean, not an income tax, rather to a sales tax, a consumption tax, you are giving a tax cut to the rich and you are funding it with a working class.
Yes.
Tax hike.
It's true.
That's what you're doing.
It is
so if you just
correct.
look at it through who benefits and who's going to bear the cost, I think it becomes pretty clear this is a bad deal for average people.
I had a senior reply, and I was like, what about death taxes? You wouldn't even know anything about that. And it's like, bro, unless you're worth $34 million when you die, you're not paying an estate tax.
Yeah.
It's like, so actually just tell me, you're filthy rich.
Oh, I mean, we barely even have a death.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like death tax.
The exemption is $15 million per person. So you're worth more than $30 million?
It's one of the
You think you shouldn't have to pay any taxes?
It's one of the most important reasons that we've had increasing, like a solidifying class structure and less upward mobility is the lack of an estate tax.
Well, it's not just, it's actually step-up basis, in my opinion. That's the that is the crime of the century. All right, I'll end it there. I know the boomers will be mad, but I'm sorry. It's like you said, we live in a society. You have to pay for us because we pay for you. Literally, that's what the money is for from the government.
And like, did you go to school
exactly.
at one point in your life? Did people pay taxes
so
did. That you could go to school?
As I'm sitting here paying for your dialysis, it's infuriating. I'm sorry. All right, let's get to your monologue. What are you taking a look at? Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.